everybody, my name's Timmy, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to install the 80cc motorized bike kit from Demon Bikes. Before you begin this project, it is important to gather together everything you will need. The tools for this project are a set of metric wrenches, a Dremel, a rubber mallet, safety glasses, a sharp X-Acto knife, assorted screwdrivers, and a drill. You will also need a 26-inch V-frame bike and the 80cc motorized bike kit from Demon Bikes. The first step is to install the engine. Begin by removing any accessories from the bike, then place the motor between the seat post and the lower frame. Next, install the rear mounting hardware. First, place the clamp onto the rear studs, followed by the split ring washers, then the standard washers, and finally the nut. Use a wrench to get the nuts as possible. Also, during use, it is advisable to periodically check the nuts for signs of loosening, as the vibrations from the engine can cause the nuts to loosen. Similarly, install the front mounting hardware. Finally, spin the cranks to make sure the pedals don't scrape the motor. The second step is to install the muffler. Begin by placing the muffler on the two studs protruding from the front of the engine. Then put on the split ring washers, the normal washers, and the nuts. Again, use a wrench to tighten up the nuts. However, be careful you don't over-tighten them, as that can cause the studs from the engine to break. Once the muffler is securely attached, spin the cranks to make sure the pedals don't rub against it. If they do, you can place the muffler in a wooden vise and use the rubber mallet to bend it. The third step is to install the sprocket. Begin by removing the back wheel. Secondly, take apart the sprocket mounting hardware. Use an X-Acto knife to make a cut on the fiber ring as shown. Thread the cut fiber ring through the center of the wheel and put the other fiber wing on the outside of the wheel. Align the sprocket with the outer fiber ring. Put all the bolts through the sprocket and fiber rings and put the washers and nuts on the inside. The convex side of the sprocket should be facing out. Then tighten up all the bolts. When this is completed, the fibers will sandwich the spokes between them. Now reinstall the rear wheel. The fourth step is to attach the chain. Begin by unscrewing this engine plate. Next, use the spark plug tool to thread the chain through the engine sprocket. Pull the chain tight and use a pencil to mark where it needs to be cut. This is the mark on the chain. Because the mark is on an outer link and the master link connects to inner links, I will have to cut the chain one link down from where the mark was made. Use a grinder to grind down the pin on the link you want to remove. Grind the pin flat on both sides. Now use a punch in the rubber mallet to knock the pin out. Rethread the chain around the sprocket and install the master link. When installing the master link, be sure to have the outer piece in this orientation, because if it is backwards, it can pop off. Now reattach the engine plate. Also bolt on the chain tensioner. Begin by taking apart the carburetor. Put the throttle cable through the screw on the top, then put it through the spring, and hook it in the metal cylinder. Now put this assembly back into the carburetor and replace the metal washer. Screw the top back together. This should move the metal cylinder inside the carburetor. Now take apart the hand throttle and connect the other end of the gas cable to it. You will need to drill a small hole in the top of the bike's handlebars for the pin from the hand throttle. Once this is done, replace the hand throttle on the handlebars. The carburetor simply bolts onto the engine at this point here. Step 6. Installing the fuel tank. The fuel tank simply bolts onto the top of the frame. Also, it is a good idea to use gas line sealant material on the gas valve. The fuel line then connects from the gas valve to the fuel filter and finally to the carburetor. The final step is to install what's left over. First of all, install the clutch handle on the left side of your handlebars, much like a brake lever. The clutch cable then gets put through the big spring, which acts as a heat barrier from the engine. Next it goes through this engine attachment, then the small spring, and finally the clutch lever. Now install the chain guard. First bolt the bent end of the chain guard to the long screw that comes out of the engine next to the clutch lever. Then use a C-clamp to bolt the other end to the frame. A zip tie can also be used in place of a C-clamp. The last step is to install the electronics. Use the spark plugger included in this kit to tighten up the spark plug. Also bolt on the coil igniter as indicated. The black cap from the coil igniter fits onto the spark plug. The wires coming from the coil fit into the wires coming from the engine. Also, plug the wires from the kill switch into the coil. Now that your engine is installed, it is important to take good care of it. Use a 16:1 ratio of gas to oil when you first break the bike in, but after a few tanks you can use a 32:1 ratio. Also, maintain the engine regularly, tightening loose bolts and lubricating as necessary. Thanks for watching and ride safe.